So, the first thing I did after my husband and I checked into the nicest hotel in my hometown was block my sister's number. The second thing was to pull up the room service menu and order the most expensive steak they had, medium rare, with a side of truffle fries and extra garlic butter. As I was taking that first, glorious, unapologetic bite of steak, my phone started vibrating off the nightstand. It was my mom, then my dad, then my aunt, then my mom again. The gist of the frantic voicemails was always the same. Why had I abandoned my sister the week of her big charity gala? Abandoned her? Honey, let me tell you, I was kicked out. And the whole ridiculous, infuriating saga started 5 days earlier over a damn plate of lasagna. Let me give you the lay of the land. My sister, Amanda, is 3 years older than me. And in our family's universe, she's the son. She's the successful one, married a wealthy guy, Mark, has 3 beautiful and beautifully chaotic kids, lives in a house that looks like it was ripped from a magazine, and spends her days as the self-appointed queen bee of her suburban kingdom. She's the PTA president, the head of the neighborhood watch, and this year, the chairperson for a massive annual charity gala she was hosting at her house. She's also always been an expert at making me feel about 2 inches tall. Me? I'm Sarah. For most of my life, I was the fat sister. It was the invisible label I wore at every family gathering. It wasn't just that I was overweight, it was that my weight was my primary defining characteristic in Amanda's eyes. Every piece of cake I ate was met with a sigh. Every new diet I tried was met with condescending encouragement. A few months before this story begins, I'd had a bit of a health scare. Nothing serious, thank God, but it was the kick in the pants I needed. With the help of my incredible husband, Ben, I got serious. I changed my habits, started working out, and lost about 50 pounds. For the first time in my adult life, I felt genuinely good in my own skin. I was healthy, I was strong, and I was happy. Amanda had barely mentioned it, which, in hindsight, should have been a massive red flag. The call came on a Tuesday. It was Amanda, and she was in a full-blown panic. Mark, her husband, was on an emergency 2-week business trip to Singapore. Her live-in nanny, in a stroke of what I can only describe as genius-level timing, had quit with 0 notice. And the gala, the single most important event of her social calendar, was in 10 days. Sarah, you have to help me, she wailed into the phone. I'm drowning. The kids are feral, the house is a wreck, and I have the caterers and florists and rental companies calling me every 5 minutes. I can't do it alone. Please, can you and Ben come stay for the week? Just until the gala? I'll owe you for the rest of my life. Ben and I lived 3 hours away. We both have demanding jobs. Taking a week off with no notice was a huge ask. But she's my sister. And she sounded genuinely desperate. Ben, being the saint that he is, looked at me and said, "It's up to you, babe. If you want to go, I'll make it work." So, against my better judgment, I said yes. We packed our bags, cleared our schedules, and drove into the eye of the hurricane. The moment we walked through her door, I knew we'd made a mistake. The house looked like it had been ransacked by a gang of tiny, sticky-fingered criminals. Toys were everywhere, there was a suspicious-looking stain on the white leather sofa, and the air was thick with the sound of her 2-year-old screaming. Amanda hugged me, her eyes wide with desperation. "Thank God you're here," she whispered. "You handle the kids, I'll handle the gala." For the first few hours, we were a pretty good team. Ben wrangled the 7- and 4-year-olds into the backyard. I managed to calm down the toddler, and we got the house to a state of semi-controlled chaos. I even offered to cook dinner. I decided to make my famous lasagna, a hearty, comforting, multi-layered beast of a meal. It's my go-to crowd pleaser. By the time we all sat down at the table, we were exhausted but feeling accomplished. The kids were fed and quiet, and the aroma of garlic bread filled the air. I served everyone and then cut a perfectly normal-sized square of lasagna for myself. As I lifted it onto my plate, I saw Amanda's eyes narrow. "Wow, Sarah," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the quiet chatter of the table. "Are you sure you should be eating that?" I froze, my fork hovering over my plate. "What do you mean?" "Well," she said, gesturing to my plate with her fork. "It's just a lot of carbs. And cheese. You've made such amazing progress. I'd hate to see you slide back into your old habits." The air went still. Ben's jaw tightened so hard I could hear his teeth creak. I tried to play it off, forcing a laugh that sounded more like a choke. Amanda, it's one piece of lasagna. I think I'll survive. She didn't let it go. She adopted this concerned, patronizing tone that she'd perfected over years of practice. I'm just saying. I'm proud of you and I want you to succeed. There's some steamed kale in the fridge if you'd rather have that. I made it for myself. The implication hung in the air. She, the thin, disciplined one, eats steamed kale. I, the former fat girl teetering on the edge of relapse, was recklessly indulging in lasagna. Ben immediately jumped in and changed the subject, asking the kids about school, but the damage was done. My appetite vanished. I pushed the cheesy, delicious food around my plate, my stomach churning with a familiar mix of shame and anger. This was just the first night. We still had 6 to go. The next few days were a blur of toddler tantrums, juice spills, and endless gala-related phone calls for Amanda. Ben and I were on full-time kid duty from 6 a.m. until the kids crashed at 8 p.m. We were exhausted. Amanda, meanwhile, floated around the house on a cloud of stress, barking orders and critiquing our every move. But it was her little digs at me, her constant, subtle, and not so subtle, reminders of my past weight that started to feel like 1,000 paper cuts. On day 3, I was helping her sort through boxes of decorations in the garage. I was wearing comfortable jeans and an old college t-shirt. She stopped, put her hands on her hips, and gave me a slow, deliberate head-to-toe scan. You know, she began, with the weight loss, you could finally start wearing something nice. You still dress like you're trying to hide your body. Before I could even process the insult disguised as advice, she bustled over to a dusty wardrobe in the corner. Here, I have some of my old clothes. They're probably still too big for you, but they'd be a start. She pulled out a truly hideous, frumpy, beige dress that was at least 3 sizes too big for me now. See? Something like this would be so much more flattering on you. It would give you some shape. My blood went cold. She wasn't just insulting my fashion sense. She was telling me that even after losing 50 pounds, I was still a shapeless blob in her eyes, only worthy of her cast-offs. Ben walked into the garage right at that moment, took one look at the hideous dress in her hands and the expression on my face, and immediately understood. He gave me a look that said, "We can leave right now." I just gave a tiny shake of my head. I was a guest in her house. I was here to help. I wouldn't make a scene. I just forced a smile and said, "Thanks, Amanda, but I'm good." The next day was the park incident. I took the kids to the playground to burn off some of their manic energy. I was actually having fun, chasing the 4-year-old around the slide, pushing the 2-year-old on the swing. I was a little out of breath, sure, but I was keeping up. Amanda sat on a bench, glued to her phone, coordinating with the gala's DJ. As I walked back to the bench to grab a water bottle, I overheard her conversation. "Yeah, my sister Sarah is here, helping out," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "She's trying to keep up with the kids. I guess it's good exercise for her. Lord knows she needs it. She's still got a ways to go, but at least she's moving, right?" She laughed. A light, tinkling laugh, as if she'd just said the funniest thing in the world. I felt my face flush with heat. I wasn't her sister. I was her charity case. Her Fat Sister Gets Fit project, a fun little anecdote to share with her friends. I sat down next to her, and she ended her call, completely oblivious to the fact that I'd heard every word. I just stared straight ahead, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt Ben's hand find mine. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The breaking point, the moment I knew this was all going to implode, happened at the mall. Amanda needed a dress for the gala, and she insisted I come along to give my opinion. In reality, my job was to be the glorified babysitter, chasing the toddler through the racks of a high-end boutique while she preened in front of the mirror. She tried on a stunning emerald green silk gown, a size 4. She looked incredible, and she knew it. She did a slow twirl in front of the 3-way mirror, then caught my eye. "See, Sarah," she said loudly, a smug smile on her face. "This is what you can look forward to when you lose that last 20 pounds. Think of it as motivation." I felt the eyes of the other customers and the sales associates on me. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. The sales assistant, A young woman who was clearly just trying to be helpful turned to me. "And are you looking for anything for the event, ma'am?" Before I could even open my mouth to say no, Amanda let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, God, no. They don't carry her size in the store. We're just looking for me today." And that was it. The public humiliation. The casual cruelty of it. It was one thing to say these things in the privacy of her home, but to announce to a room full of strangers that I was too fat to shop there? It was a new low, even for her. Ben, who had been patiently holding the now squirming toddler, stepped forward. His face was a thundercloud. "That's not true, and it was a horrible thing to say, Amanda." Amanda just rolled her eyes, completely unconcerned. "Oh, relax, Ben. I'm just being honest. It's for her own good. A little tough love never hurt anyone." "That's not tough love," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "That's just you being a bitch." The sales assistant's jaw dropped. Amanda gasped, clutching her pearls in mock horror. I quickly grabbed Ben's arm and muttered that we should go, that it wasn't worth it. The rest of the shopping trip was completed in a thick, suffocating silence. The night before the gala, the house was finally ready. Decorations were up, the caterers had done their prep work, and for the first time all week, there was a sense of calm. Ben and I were running on fumes. We had been on duty for 5 straight days, acting as unpaid nannies, housekeepers, and event coordinators. We were having a late dinner of leftovers, all of us too tired to cook. I was quietly eating a salad with some grilled chicken. Amanda was on the phone with our mom. She was in full-on martyr mode, complaining about how stressed she was, how much work the gala was, how she couldn't have done it without me. It almost sounded like she was being grateful. Then, her tone shifted. "Yeah, Mom, well, Sarah's been trying to be good." She did have that huge plate of lasagna on the first night, though, Amanda said into the phone, shooting me a look over the receiver. "I know, I was worried too. You know how she is with food. She has such an addictive personality. We're all just terrified she's going to gain it all back and then some." I just stared at her. She was casually discussing my food addiction with our mother, painting me as some ticking time bomb of fat, about to explode all over her pristine life. She was weaponizing our own mother's concern against me. And she was doing it right in front of my face. She hung up the phone and looked at me with that same, infuriatingly placid expression. "Mom says hi. She's just worried about you." We all are. In that moment, all the anger, all the hurt, all the resentment of the past week, of the past 30 years, just vanished. It was replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I was done. Done being her punching bag. Done making myself small to make her feel big. Done sacrificing my own peace for the sake of a family dynamic that was built on me being the loser. Before I could formulate a single word, Ben slowly placed his fork on his plate. He stood up. He had been a silent, supportive rock all week, respecting my wishes not to start a family war. But he had reached his limit. He looked directly at Amanda, and his voice, when he spoke, was unnervingly calm. "Amanda, do you have any idea how unbelievably cruel you are?" Amanda's jaw dropped. She was completely taken aback. "Excuse me? I am trying to help my sister. I am trying to support her." Ben let out a short, humorless laugh. "Support her? You call this support? For 5 straight days, my wife has cooked your meals, cleaned your house, and wrangled your 3 children so you could play party planner. She took a week off of her job, drove 3 hours, and put her life on hold to do you a massive favor. And in return, you have done nothing but insult her. You have undermined her confidence, mocked her in front of her family, humiliated her in public, and tried to poison our own mother against her. You haven't mentioned her 50-pound weight loss once, with anything but a backhanded comment. You can't stand to see her happy, can you? You can't stand that she's not your sad, fat little sister anymore." Amanda's face contorted with rage. It was the first time in her life, I think, that someone had truly called her on her behavior. "How dare you?" she shrieked. "This is MY House. You are a guest in MY House. You do not get to speak to me like that." "We're done being guests," Ben said, his voice like steel. "We're leaving. We are done being your unpaid staff and your emotional punching bags." Amanda whirled on me, her eyes blazing. She clearly expected me to handle him, to smooth things over like I always did. "Sarah, are you going to let him talk to me like this?" After everything I've done for you. I stood up slowly. I looked my sister in the eye. He's right, Amanda, I said, my voice shaking slightly but clear. He's right about every single word. That's when she completely lost it. The mask of the perfect, poised suburban hostess shattered. You ungrateful, fat little brat, she screamed, her voice hoarse. After everything I do for this family, you're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me and my life. Fine. Get out. Get out of my house. I don't need you. I never needed you. Her screaming woke up the kids, and soon the house was filled with the sound of her rage and their frightened crying. But for once, it wasn't my problem to solve. Without another word, Ben and I turned, walked up the stairs, and threw our things into our suitcases. It took us less than 10 minutes. We walked back down the stairs, past her as she stood, red-faced and sputtering, in the foyer. We walked out the front door, got in our car, and drove away as she continued to scream at us from her doorway. Which brings me back to the hotel room. The steak. The blessed, beautiful silence. And then, the barrage of phone calls. I let them all go to voicemail. Finally, I picked up when my mom called for the 4th time. Sarah, what on earth happened? She cried. Amanda just called me, hysterical. She said you and Ben just stormed out in the middle of the night. She said you abandoned her right before her big event. I took a deep breath and handed the phone to Ben. And he, in the calmest, most patient voice I've ever heard, walked my mother through the entire week. He told her about the lasagna, the frumpy dress, the comments at the park, the humiliation at the boutique, and finally, the conversation Amanda had with her right in front of me. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. My mom is a peacemaker by nature, and her default setting is to defend Amanda. Oh, honey, she finally said, her voice weak. You know how she gets when she's stressed. She didn't mean any of it. I'm sure if you just went back and talked to her. That's when I took the phone back. No, Mom, I said, my voice firm. We're not going back. For once, her stress is not an excuse. Her cruelty is not my problem to manage. She kicked us out. We're at a hotel, and tomorrow we are going home. I am done being the family shock absorber. I said goodbye and hung up. The next day, we drove home. I found out later from my cousin that the gala was a complete and utter disaster. Without us there to run herd on the kids, Amanda was frazzled and overwhelmed. The 2-year-old apparently had a meltdown in the middle of her big speech, and she spent most of the night complaining to her guests about how her unreliable sister had bailed on her at the last minute. Apparently, it didn't go over well. Good. Her husband, Mark, called Ben a few days after he got back from his trip. Amanda had fed him her sob story, but he wanted to hear our side. Ben told him everything, holding nothing back. Mark was, to his credit, horrified. He apologized profusely and said he was going to have a very long talk with his wife. The next week, a ridiculously expensive gift basket arrived at our door, along with a check that more than covered our hotel stay and my lost wages for the week. We accepted it. Amanda didn't speak to me for 3 months. Then, at Thanksgiving, cornered by our parents, she offered me the most pathetic non-apology I've ever heard. I'm sorry if your feelings were hurt by some of the things I said when I was under a lot of stress. I looked her dead in the eye. The old me would have just accepted it to keep the peace. But the new me was done with that. I accept your apology for being a cruel and manipulative bully to me when I took a week off of my life to help you for free, I said, my voice even. And I sincerely hope you get whatever help you need to stop treating the people who love you like that. You could have heard a pin drop. She turned bright red but, for the first time in her life, said absolutely nothing. Our relationship now is polite. It's distant. I don't offer to help her anymore, and she doesn't ask. My relationship with my parents is actually better because they saw that I finally had a backbone. And my marriage to Ben is stronger than ever. I learned that he would always have my back. And me? I'm happy. I'm healthy. And I eat whatever the hell I want, whenever I want, with absolutely zero guilt. So yeah, that's how I ended up getting a steak dinner and a paid vacation for being bullied by my own sister. It was a hell of a week, but it taught me that sometimes the most important family member you have to stand up to is the one who thinks they can get away with anything. If you guys want to hear the story about what happened when Amanda tried to apologize again at Christmas with the entire extended family as an audience, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one.